Alright, so this has been a long time since I've posted anything. A lot of circumstances has changed in life as I've gotten older here, and obviously you have to be more responsible. Motorcycles, still not that responsible, but everybody has their out. Coming to you, not really doing much of the enduro stuff anymore. Don't really, it just comes down to time and it's not available anymore. But I actually just had a KLR before this, did 2,500 miles here this summer on it, but I just need a little more zip around town, and I'm not in the budget to really buy any of the F850 GSAs or the new V-Strom 800, things like that. Not really in the budget. So just want to do a first impression of the CFMoto 650 NK. As you can see here, it's actually a stout little bike. Approximately 10 miles on it as of today. Plan to do much more testing and many more updates as we go. I'm not a small gentleman. I'm approximately 6'8", and CFMoto lineup is a little difficult for the taller individuals. I believe it's the CL700 Scrambler is a no-go if you're probably taller than 6'4". Their seat design is just very funky, and then it bolts your knees on the 700 up here. Not comfortable. Now, the reason why I bought this is A, I wanted cheap. 2, I wanted a good warranty, and that's what the CFMoto packs a punch with, is a 2-year warranty. Kind of rare to have a manufacturer put out a warranty to that extent, but they are fairly new to the market. I mean, the United States market at least, CFMoto has been around for a while. I did see some videos as early as 5 years ago with the 650 NK, but the United States market just hasn't had these bikes for very long. From my understanding, and I could be totally off, it's either I thought KTM bought the rights to the CFMoto, or it's the other way around, that CFMoto is building KTM engines. Haven't 100% ironed that out, but as you can see here, this motor looks very familiar, or at least, you know, a cloned version per se of the Versus 650, you know, the ER6N 650 kind of naked bike that they produced. I don't think they made it too long, but very similar engine setup. Pretty much looks identical to several of my Versus 650s. You know, the fact that with incentives out right now that end here in October, this bike's very budget friendly. Obviously, I can't say I'm a super budget friendly person when I've got a Indian Challenger right next to it, but different purposes. I'm a 2-bike person. I can't just revolve around one bike. My riding style doesn't permit that, essentially. I like to do long trips, and obviously this bike is, I'm sure you can make it work somehow, but not the ideal long trip bike. That's the king of the castle for that. Cruise control, comfortable, GPS, speakers. It's like an old man's bike, but as I get older, close to 30 now, it's just way more comfortable. Anyway, back to CFMoto. So CFMoto actually packs a fair bit of features in this. You wouldn't expect a inexpensive bike to be rolling out ABS. I'm not familiar with this brand of brakes, but I did see on the touring model, it looked like it had little Brembos on it, which is pretty impressive. What's more impressive is that they're putting steel braided lines on a bike so inexpensive when you're kind of used to seeing steel braided lines on more expensive bikes. Oil filter location looks the same as versus 650, which is good because that means maintenance will be cheap and easy because you can do it at home and there's not too much figuring out to do. You got your little radiator in there, not too bad. Surprisingly, the CFMoto has a TFT display. I personally don't love TFTs. The early generation, a lot of things, you would see a lot of screen burn. But so far, I can't say much because my Indian has got a little over 1,500 miles in a couple of months. So we'll see how the screen burn plays out on this bike. But overall, it's a sharp little bike. Never had anything that bright. So we get a little getting used to. The gearing feels very similar to an SV650. Never owned one, but have ridden many friends who used to have them back in the day. It's kind of hard to find. I believe Suzuki still makes the SV650. I don't know about 2024, but they did have like a 2022 and a 23 model, but trying to get your hands on one, rather difficult. So my biggest gripe, but all manufacturers do it, is the giant tail. Not the biggest fan of the giant tail, but already within, I don't know, an hour of owning it, I lopped this tail off. So it's a little more snub. There is room to cut down there, so you don't have to worry about too much. Cuts aren't the greatest, but you know, grinder permits. So yeah, just starting an intro on the CFMoto 650 NK. One thing I will say impressive, wasn't expecting it, is the Pirelli tires on it. Angel GTs. Angel GTs have been out for quite some time, but on such an inexpensive bike, you know, I would have figured like a cheaper set of battle axes or something along those lines, like the CBR 250R had like IRC tires or battle axes, but this bike does not come with it. Exhaust note sounds very similar to any other twin 650. It's a little torquey bike. It's not the highest horsepower in the 650 category, but kind of get what you pay for. So I'd say it's pretty decent for the price tag on it. I mean, out the door, you're looking about, with incentives, depending on your state, $5,500. Not bad at all for what you get. Seat, not comfortable, but doesn't matter to me. It's going to be kind of a couple hours in town on some back road, like back highway roads, some twisties. Not too concerned about that. Not something I'm going to ride for 8 hours at a time, like my Indian. Rear ABS. You do have a spot to put spools in. Kind of cool. Exhaust looks very similar to the Versus 650. Probably get a little pipe for that. Going rate on them on like a GPR is in the $500 range. Probably not going to go to that extent. Probably just going to get some kind of Chinese knockoff. Wouldn't say Kaufman Shorty, those are too obnoxious, but you can get some kind of okay looking cans on eBay for about $100. The real search is going to be for a tail tidy. I think this bike would look great without this giant beak on the back of the bike. But, you know, from an outsider standpoint who never had Chinese anything besides like a little SSR pit bike where you spend $1,000, it breaks, whatever, no big deal. It's pretty impressive. Mirrors are interesting. They're very bulky, but even at my height, I can see around my shoulders, which is surprising. On a little naked 650. Kind of cool little reservoir. Strikes me as, you know, kind of cheaper end into like the, like back in the day when you'd go into like a Parts Unlimited catalog, you'd see a lot of this stuff. But whatever, brakes work. Front brakes are great, rear brake is a little spongy, but like I said, you kind of get what you pay for. Probably delete out these mirrors, never even noticed these buttons, so that's cool. Now that I actually look at it, I have to figure out that little aspect. Adjustable levers, kind of a nice feature. A little bit of slop in them, not too bad though. Pretty normal. A little bit right next to the clutch dial adjustment here. Pull feels great, super easy, super light. Feels like you're probably actually a little softer than a Versa 650. Feels a little more SV 650. But yeah, first impressions are, it's pretty cool. If you're taller, you probably wind up with the same issue as me, is your shifter. You can adjust it a hair. Obviously you can see where I marked, because I always want to be able to go back to the original point. But I was able to adjust it just a hair, not really enough, so you kind of have to lift your foot up to shift if you are a taller individual like me. Whatever, no big deal. I've been stuck with this issue my whole entire life of riding. Chain looks pretty solid, good factory lubrication, just looks like your standard chain. Steel sprocket, no issues with those, they last a fair amount of time. Aluminum looks cool, but it never has longevity of steel. So yeah, just a little overview of the 650 NK. I look forward to updating you guys. Nice little bike, lights are bright, horn sounds a little funny. But yeah, hope you guys are enjoying life really well, as all of us seem to get a little bit older here. And I'll give you an update here probably in a couple of weeks. Not a lot left of the riding season, but a lot left of the building season when winter hits. So, Enduro guys signing off. Have a good night.